So Tracey is a master's student at the University of Otago. So Tracey's been a physiotherapist at the Burwood Spinal Unit for about 15 years now. She has a particular interest in the acute management of spinal cord impairment rehabilitation, and she's been a strong advocate for establishing a national SCI registry. So she led a year-long pilot study at the Burwood Spinal Unit and has coordinated the implementation of the New Zealand Spinal Cord Injury Register in partnership with Rick Hansen. And today she's going to talk to us about her master's project. So just before she starts, I do have a special award, and I have a chocolate fish for someone who has constantly been the first person to reply to all the peer group meetings.
Oh, Jen Dunn.
So Jennifer Dunn.
Yeah.
I usually get my RSVP within the box before I've even pressed send. So without further ado, Tracey.
Thanks, Jo. Right, just to warn you, I'm terrified, so just, ignore my nerves. I put this up because this was me in the weekend, thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Last minute panic, I have to do something. So, I'm here today to talk about my masters, and in particular, looking at the challenges working in your area of research. Bale. I've had fantastic support from Bale, and I'm making my way through this process because this is how I felt about research. I didn't really think I was cut out for it. And then I find out that research path is never a smooth or straight journey. And so Bale have been very, very supportive in the way it basically allowed me to poke and prod all the members of the team, and have been really, really helpful for me. So I do appreciate all the support. The benefits of being a Bale Scholar, for me in particular, has been, obviously the financial help's been great, but definitely the support. Research is definitely daunting and overwhelming, but the team helps you realise that yes it is, but this is normal, and it's been great to be able to bounce ideas off those who have been there and done that. So Debbie, Jo, Johnny, Michelle have all been really willing to share their knowledge, so I really have appreciated it. The Bale Postgrad group meets regularly too, and that's a really good space for all of us who are going through the same issues, can get together and talk. So it's really been great. So I did decide to come into the world of academia, which I quite like because I'm a bit of a Calvin Hobbes fan. I don't know if you can tell. Yes. So here we go. This is my, oh sorry, did everyone get that? Yeah. So the background. So registries, Ditch and Dreyer have defined registries as an organised system that use observational study methods to collect uniform data, so that's clinical for us, and to evaluate specified outcomes for a particular population, which is defined by a particular disease. And it's got to serve a predetermined purpose. So this is what my whole research is about. In 2014, we didn't know how many people were having a spinal cord injury in New Zealand or impairment. We didn't know the incidence, the prevalence, we didn't know much at all. So this is not a new thought. Wanting a registry had been talked about for decades, right back to 1969 when Bill Utley, who first started the spinal unit, talked about it. And so getting it into the spinal cord action plan was a massive thing. It was a pretty big deal. And from that came the pilot project at the spinal unit from May 2014 to June 2015, where we trialled 2 different registries that were already up and running internationally. We hosted that here at the BSU, and I was coordinator, and my master's thesis was based around it. Seemed like a perfect project for a master's thesis. So, what happened? I love how 2.5 years of work fits on one slide. The RISCA was adopted, so the Rick Hansen is the Canadian version that we trialled, and that was recommended by the pilot. And then a few months' work, it became the New Zealand Spinal Cord Injury Registry, and that was launched this year on the 1st of August. It's a national registry, so both the units in New Zealand are using it. And I was undergoing data collection for my master's when I became employed as the Burwood version of the coordinator for the registry. So I was quite involved. So I thought, well, what is actually known of staff attitudes or opinions on registries? What's the impact on staff and the factors that will influence them in inputting data into a registry? So here are my objectives. To explore opinions and experiences of staff entering data and their impact in a clinical setting, and to analyse the data that was entered into the registry in the pilot. So, apparently I do care. And so, onwards and upwards for research. Hey. So, I'm not doing a strict mixed methods research design. I'm doing a qualitative focus group to get the opinions and appearances and experiences of staff. And I'm just backing it up with a lot of quantitative stuff with a descriptive analysis of the data that's been entered. And we're basically going to talk about the first phase today. So, exploration of staff opinion. I went with focus groups because I thought, particularly for clinical staff, it's an easy way of gathering a range of views and getting some shared thoughts, bouncing off ideas off each other, stimulating some good discussion, and getting a range of feelings and attitudes from a number of participants. That was my theory. The inclusion criteria was any clinicians that were invited to input data into the RISCA during the pilot, and any staff member who had experience with a registry or a database before. So I worked out that there was potentially 27 staff members across 6 disciplines in the spinal unit, and staff were approached by a third party via email. Thanks, Drew. So, 4 focus groups. I completed 4 focus groups of between 3 and 5 members plus a one-on-one interview. So there was 18 participants in total. I did a semi-structured, open-ended question format, and there was a neutral observer present in all focus groups. Thanks, Rochelle. Even though she's not here today. They were videoed and audio recorded and then transcribed using the graphic style, so it's basically verbatim. So that was what I did. It was very challenging trying to get clinicians all at the same place at the same time. Initially, I was hoping to get those who had entered data and those who had not entered data into separate groups so that they could discuss that amongst each other. However, this proved a logistical nightmare. So we ended up having a mix of those who had entered data and those who hadn't. Because of the timing restrictions with the clinical load, it was too challenging. And this is where I'm up to. Hopefully not the made up fact. So, I am now at the analysis phase. So, I'm using Broad and Clark's 6-phase thematic analysis. These are the stages. I'm not going to go into detail about them, but I chose this because it was recommended for beginners. So I thought this is perfect. I'm familiarising myself with the data currently. I've got someone to do the transcribing, and I'm just reading and rereading, and now I'm looking at doing the initial codes into meaningful groups. So yes, and this is what I hope to achieve, a rich thematic description of the entire data set. So it's for basically the views, it's for type of group that you don't know the views of. So this is why we're going for the inductive approach. So without trying to fit it into a pre-existing coding frame or my preconceptions. So, and the transcript accuracy will be checked by supervisors. Thanks, Jen. Okay, so the clinician researcher issue. So just to clarify, in summary, my roles have been varied. I've been a physiotherapist like Josie's since 2001 here. I have been the registry pilot coordinator, so I was involved at that stage, and then now I'm the current coordinator of the actual registry. So I've been doing lots of different things, but all around a lot to do with registry. I've looked at this particular article I've got here, if anyone's interested. This is a paper by Jen Hay-Smith, and she has been, who's from Otago University, and she has looked at a systematic review of 36 papers, mainly looking at the once a clinician, always a clinician kind of theory when you're looking at doing research as a clinician. There's a lot of role confusion, and it can be both external, so trying to explain to people, clarifying your roles to others, but there's also the internal feeling of conflict between roles as well. There were two overarching themes. When they looked at these 36 papers, there were a lot of nursing research, and most of them were qualitative, but there were a few quantitative. And the themes that kind of came out were clinical patterns of behaviour and the connection between clinician-patient relationship. So they wanted to develop a classification so that you could look at preempting what would happen as a clinician researcher, so that you could come up with methodological and ethically sound research. It was a really interesting article actually, and I identified a lot with the things that they came up with after I'd done that phase, because this has only just been published in August. So these are the themes that they came up with. The ones that I particularly had identification with are the ones that are highlighted there in italics. So I'm just going to talk briefly about those things. So clinical queries, the issues that some people had were discomfort around wanting to respond to things but feeling unable because they felt that they would be influencing the data or blurring your roles. Often participants asked me questions when I was in the focus group, and so I found it quite hard to say actually no. How can I turn that around and ask the question back of the participants? That was quite hard for me because I just wanted to answer their question, but it wasn't about me as a clinician. It was about me as a researcher. So as I became more aware of this throughout my focus groups, it was really obvious that some of the participants blurred my role as a researcher and as a clinician. Perceived agenda. Basically, I felt at times that I was being asked to acknowledge that there were some unmet needs of staff, or to offer a second opinion, and that was around the burden of entering data, and it was a concern, but I felt that I couldn't respond to it because I was potentially creating a false expectation. So that was definitely something that cropped up throughout. Research or therapy. Being known by the participants to be both a clinician and a researcher was enough to give me some issues, and potentially the participant can expect a coordinated response that's not part of the research. So a lot of people in this paper suggested that they were left with a sense of unfinished business after a focus group. And after the research is complete, due to their kind of clinician perspectives, and I certainly identified with that, the frustration of not being able to clarify some points. Suspicion and holding back under the connection. The researcher might think that the participant is holding something back, or they might view even their body language or the tone in which they're giving the information. And the participant also can be suspicious about what the underlying purpose of the research is, or what will be made of the information. And that can be a bit of sense of distrust, and it can provide anxiety in the researcher, because it could be interpreted as the participant felt coerced to be there, or that the participant's holding back can affect the quality of the data. But I was reassured that people were quite happy to tell me their criticism. And I suppose as a clinician that was quite disparaging, because it's quite uncomfortable to hear. I found it quite difficult because I've been working on the project the whole time, and I kind of took that almost personally. I had to make a particular effort to remain neutral and to resist instincts to defend the registry, but to try and understand the what and the why behind the criticism. And over-identification with the clinical self. The researcher may identify with their sense of clinical self or the clinical environment which they're carrying out research, so you can often feel too close, and I certainly did feel too close to have an outsider's perspective in the research, or to be blind to it. So having a neutral observer in the focus group was certainly helpful in that sense, and I thank Michelle for that, because she was able to pick things up that I certainly wasn't. So yeah. So hopefully I haven't messed with the data too much. Good old. So basically, the Jennifer slide. So what? Findings from my focus groups have already helped me with the implementation of the RISCA. I think it's important to note that when you're researching as a clinician, once you're a clinician, you're always a clinician. And it may be your clinical expertise that would be the very reason that the clinicians are recruited to the research role, or to initiate a research to investigate clinical questions. And it's pretty obvious that we can't really just shed our clinical skin. We need to basically make us more aware of the messy personal kind of experience of a dual role, but there are benefits and challenges. The paper gave an 11-point framework, just questions for clinician researchers researching patient participants, and they're basically 11 questions that cover the 10 areas, the themes that they discovered. And I wish I'd looked at this before, because it's really, really helpful kind of framework to develop strategies. So asking you, if someone addresses you and asks this question, what will you do? It just preempts you to think about how you can prepare yourself for the eventual issues that will come up as a dual role. We can have confidence in the clinician researchers to produce ethically and methodologically sound research. And I really do feel that we can go onwards and upwards and learn from all these things. So thank you to the Burwood Academy of Independent Living, to my very patient and tolerant supervisors, Gina and Judy Mice from Wellington, Canterbury District Health Board for support in the other role as the coordinator, and yeah, that's me done and dusted.